Okay, fine. Today I'm supposed to cover basic topics for you, like data types and methods in Java. Uh, uh, Instead of giving some theory classes, let me go with some hands-on programming, for which I will be making use of Eclipse, which will be my IDE. Is my screen visible to everyone? Are you able to see my screen? Fine. Let me start with the session, right? Okay, so before proceeding with the basics, let me ask you something like what do you understand by the term private and public in Java? Anyone has any idea? If you want, you can even turn on your mic and speak. It will not be an issue for me. Okay, fine. So no one said the answer. Okay, fine. Let me proceed with my session then. In Java, as everyone knows, every programming languages have primitive data types as well as derived data types. In Java, you will be having an additional type called as class types. Okay. In primitive data types, you will be storing values based upon their type. For example, in int, you will be storing integer type values, as everyone knows, and similarly for float, long, and character type values, which will be called as primitive data types, where you cannot be handling any null kind of values. Whereas in class types, you can store null values, which will not be possible in primitive types. As you can see, this will be the output when you run this program, where primitive data types you will be storing the values, whereas in class types you can store null, as well as you will be able to store your values also. So this will be used in situations where you will not be knowing the values initially, but your programs when it is proceeding, but you have to store it, and it will also be used in conditions where you make use of null in your programs. Okay. Is this are you able to understand regarding data types? And in Java, you will be having a lot of data types like integer, float, long, character, boolean, short, bytes, etc. But mostly you will be making use of integer and character string types, so that in most of the programs, as well as in competitive programming also. And next, let me go to arrays, where by definition you will be knowing that array is a collection of data types and something etc. Okay, so but in general you will be storing a lot of similar type of values in an array, which will be used in situations where you have to store a lot, process a lot, and those storages must be in consecutive orders. So if you can see here, I have two different types of initialization for an array. In this kind of initialization where you make use of array littles will be used when you actually know the exact values that will be stored. If you declare something like this, Java will directly count the values, and the length of this array will be directly identified and stored by Java. Whereas if you can see here, we have initialized it with 1, 2, and 3. So Java will be in this code, it will be directly known that the array size will be 3. If you want to increase the size, you can just add another value, then your code will run without any issues. And similarly, if you initialize an array and directly store only a part of the values, then the remaining values will be stored as 0 by default, for which you can make use of this one as an example. And for two-dimensional arrays, this is the example. This is the simplest form and explanation for arrays, where you can make use of any kind of initialization also. If you have any queries related to arrays, or if you want me to do some programs related to arrays, you can ask me in the chat box where I can give you an execute and show you the queries, or if you have doubts regarding arrays. If no queries, then I will proceed with the next topic because I have a very less time. I have to complete within 10 minutes or less. Okay, so let me go to the next method where I will be making use of IO operations. Okay. As you can know, every programming language, we will be reading some data from the console and we will be processing some values in it. In Java, we make use of scanner to read the values. Scanner is an util function in Java which you have to be importing. Actually, these import statements are used to import a particular type or package from the jar files that we make use in Java. Jars are nothing but a bundle of codes that are used to simplify the operations that we are going to perform, or program that we are going to write. Here, scanner is an util function which we make use of to read the different values from the console. Here, I make use of scanner to scan an integer from the console. As you can see, if I run this program, the console will be waiting for my input. Once I give the input and press enter, my input will be read and I am printing my input. Here I have closed the scanner, which is a good practice actually. While you start writing programs in Java, you must ensure that you are following good coding practices also. For example, here in the class name, you must always start with the caps, and you must make use of camel case notations also. Similarly, when you are naming a variable, you must ensure that your variable name explains what that variable actually does. Here, for example, the scanner, we are making use of it for scanning the values. So I have named it as scanner, whereas this variable input is used to store the input that we are getting from the console. So I am making use of this variable to store the input. So I named it as input. Fine. These are some good coding practices that you must follow when you are coding. When you are going for placements, also your evaluator will be checking for these kinds of practices that you make use in your codes. Excuse me. And if you are not following these practices, this will be some kind. This will have some kind of negative impact on your results too. And next, let me move on to branching, which is supposed to be my next topic. Okay, fine. Here is a simple if-else statement. By default, by branching, what you will say is you will be having a few criteria. Based upon the criteria and the execution, your execution must differ. For example, here I will be getting the input, which will be an integer, and I will be accessing whether the input is less than 5 or it is less than 10 and greater than 5, or else it must be doing a some other value. So here there are three different ways in which your program may proceed. Okay, so for example, if I run this code and give the input as 5, then you will be getting this value. If you run it again and you will be giving the input as 2, you will be going into this branch. If you are giving some values which will be greater than 10, you will be going into the third branch. This is called as branching. For branching, you will be making use of switch statements also. But by default, most of the programmers, they make use of if statements, because in case for a variable that you are using inside a switch statement, if you give a null value, then there are possibilities for null pointer exception to take place also. So please ensure that in your code there are no null values. As a programmer, you must make use of something like that, so that your code will be exception free. And next one will be loops. Okay, so there are three different loops, as you all know. That it will be for loop, while loop, do while loops, etc. And here I am I'm creating a scanner, getting an input, and I'm iterating from 0 till that input, and I'm printing it here. Same way, I'm making use of it in the while loop. As you all know, a do while loop will be executed at least once. before it, either it is satisfying the criteria or not, do while loop will be executed once. For example, if you can see in this do while loop, I have given the condition that the given input must be less than the input itself, but which will not be a true case at any instant. But you will be seeing that this print statement will be executed inside the while loop once. I'm giving the input as 5, and you can see that 5 will not be 5 will not be less than 5, but though it is false, since we are executing this inside a do while loop, we'll be able to see that this statement is getting executed once. Okay. Similarly, for loop and while loop, both will be utilized. The conditions where we make use of for and while must be decided by the programmer as well, because both will be executed in a similar manner, and both will be taking the same timestamp. Fine. Okay, let me go on with the next topic where I'll be discussing about encapsulation. Encapsulation is a part where your program will be, your variables will be stored inside a class, but those variables cannot be accessed directly. You will be making use of some methods which will be used to set or get the values from that class instance. For example, here inside this class, I have created two private methods, private variables, like an integer variable and a string variable, which will be encapsulated inside this class. Here I am making use of two methods to set the values inside the class. I will be getting an integer value, and I will be setting that integer value to these variables. And in order to get these values, I will be writing a public method which will be called as getters, and we will be making use of that value to get the we will be making use of that method to get the values. You can see this example where I have created an instance of this encapsulation class, and I am having these two variables. If I try to access those variables directly, that I will be not able to get those values because those are private values, and I will not be no other class will be able to access it directly. So we will be making use of these setters to set these values inside those variables, and we will be getting those values by making use of the getters. For example, you can see that we have stored 5. Same way, we have stored that string and we have got that string as the output. This is an example for the encapsulation. And my last topic will be exception handling. For exceptions or some conditions that take place in your program, which will be affecting your normal functioning. So that we will be enclosing those kinds of codes inside a try catch block, where your code will be executed inside the try block, and your exception will be caught by the catch, and you will be making handlings based upon those catch methods. If you can see, I have initialized an integer as a null, and I am trying to add some value to the null, but which is practically not possible by any compiler, so it will be throwing some exception. If I am not catching this and this code goes into a server code or some kind of a large program, then the execution of the complete program will be blocked. So I will be enclosing this inside a catch block. If I run this, I will be getting an exception. This is how your Java exception handling takes place. And these are the topics that I am supposed to cover today. And if you have any queries, you may ask me now. Any queries? If no one has any queries, then we can end this session. I don't have any issues. Okay. Mm, it is not necessary that you have to declare each class separately, but based upon the context, you have to group your methods inside some classes. For example, say you are creating a project where you will be doing performing different operations on different sets, and you are writing that single. You are writing all those code in a single file, then your file will go beyond say around 1,000 lines if your project is somewhat good, and maintaining those kinds of code blocks and reading those code blocks will be difficult. So what as a developer you have to do is you will have to segregate those methods and variables in a separate classes, and those classes will be utilizing those variables and methods inside them and provide results that are particular or unique to them. For example, you'll be having operations based upon integers separately as well as strings separately. Both will be independent. So what you have to do is you have to separate those integer based functions into a separate class and the string based functions into a separate class, and where you utilize these functions of those individual classes must be maintained in a your main method, which will you be named inside a class, which will be a project name actually, so that if you want to read your code, it will be easy for you as well as another developer who will be looking into your code as well. I think this would have answered your question. Is this explanation enough, or should I be giving some other inputs too? Okay, fine. Any other questions? Okay, shall we end the session? No one seems to have any doubts. Okay, bye.